Welcome to another investigation. Now this is quite an important investigation, really, because this is something what must have come about fairly recently. It's about the Beaker-People, right? Which is a new thing what they'll come up with, right? Obviously you've all heard about the things like the Picts, the Romans, the Goths, the Celts, all stuff like that to do with the ancient populations of Britain and all this, right? And this is basically is a new one, right, they've come up with, called the Beaker-People, right? Now, straight away, right, this is fairly recent, right? 2018, I think, is the earliest, the earliest mention of them, right? But as you see, the ancient Britons replaced by newcomers, right? So this sort of ties in with the Great Replacement theory. And obviously the multiculturalism and all this sort of foreigners coming in, right? As you see here, right, so they've put the word in, right? In Nature, ironically, Nature, must be a magazine or something, right? Suggests the newcomers known as Beaker-People replace 90% of the British gene pool, right? So basically, I've said before, the ancient idea is basically the future, right? When they're talking about ancient past, they're basically coding in the plans for the future of it, right? It's all lies, the ancient history is all lies. They place 90% of the British gene pool, right? So you know what they're up to, right? Obviously, things like the Kalergi plan, the Great Replacement and all this, right? And this Beaker-People thing, right, is total bullshit. Beaker-People is related to the trans drinkers, right? Obviously the drinkers of the trans liquid, right? Out the beaker, obviously, right? Like a plastic beaker, and then it's has a type of scientific idea and all, because they use beakers in science labs. Like, for example, the Muppet Show, what was he called, Bunsen Honeydew in Beaker. Beaker was that sort of daft puppet who used to sort of, be on the Muppet Show, right? Who brought in a sort of white science coats, right? You remember that? So this is the biggest good, it's shite pretty good. The Beaker food, right? The course. Also, you got the idea of a beak, which is a Jew. Like a beak is a nose, right? So your Beaker-People is the day with the Jew noses, right? It's a piss take. Complete crap. And basically what they're trying to do with this idea, right, is obviously change history and associate like these new ideas what they're doing with Africa, right? As you see here, with geographical range, Europe and Northwest Africa, how the frig's Europe connected to Northwest friggin' Africa, They hadn't any boats. You're talking about this old time, right? They hadn't any boats, or any means for, there's no way it could gone from Europe to Northwest Africa, in a million years, right? So this is just a total piss take. The Beaker-People, a new population for ancient Britain. It's talking about wiping out, the proper people of Britain, replacing them with these foreigners, like, imports. Now you see here, the major site, Castro of Zambuja, Portugal. Portugal is one of the major sites, not sites, what do you call it, obviously ports, where you can go from Africa region into Europe. Portugal, that's why I call it Portugal, right? So it's a complete piss take, right? It's the trans drinkers, right? They're drinking the beakers, right? Bell-shaped beakers. 2-8 is 16-7, and 18 is 666. Bell beaker culture, inverted. Inverted is a trans, right? It's a tranny. Bell beaker drinking vessels. It's a complete crap, complete garbage. But what they're doing is they're coding in, telling you what the future is, right? So just like the 1984 You know, the double speak, you know, war equals peace, lies equals truth, you know, past equals future, right? They're basically telling you what's going on. To the British peoples, right? The proper British peoples being replaced by newcomers. Of course, 90% sure the remaining 10% will be their own Masons, right? Who are converted to Judaism. See what I mean? Even them will be like annihilated in the long run anyway, you know. It's a complete takeover, right? And as you see here with Beaker, is the Muppet show, right? So obviously, it's like they're taking a piss out of normal people, or poor people type idea. You know, like the peasant class, as the Muppets, you know, taking a piss. As you see, he's got ginger hair type idea. Of course, this character was like I don't know how to describe mental or something, you know, like on the thing. September 77, so there's a 777 code for you. And the victim of crazy experiments conducted by Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. Dew, of course, is a Jew. You know what I mean? A Jew, right? So, honey is like a sweet substance. So it's referencing that trans program, right? So this whole show was about taking a piss out of the Muppets, what they had in that trans program, you know, the Muppet Labs. See what I mean? So these upper class evil bastards, Jews, right? They even hate their own transes in their own program, you know. The advancement of science, you know. So that basically coincides with that garbage about the Beaker, you know, the Beaker-People, right? It's complete crap. Born, of course, is that they were at the Warlock thing, right? Crazy stuff, you know. Taking a piss, absolutely. Of course, you know, like a beaker is a scientific cylindrical container of chemistry labs, mixing all this, and to do with a trans liquid, right? The Beaker-People is the transgenders, and done, right? Replace 90% of the British population, the proper Britons, with bloody African transgenders. That's another thing with Tracy Beaker, with T-Race Beaker. This was basically I think the TV program was about orphans getting their adoption home or something, you know. And so that sort of ties in with the idea of this trans program where they take orphans and they family, give them the trans liquid and all that, take that sort of genes and then experiment and create new transes who be, you know, science labs and all that. That must have been how they've done it. You know, the original transes that got waifs and strays, like, or whatever. You know, like orphans and stuff like that, homeless and all that. And then just experimenting with them, you know, all the way. Create a T-race. You know what I mean? That must have been the origins of it, like. Of course, the lass who was in it, a little trans. Jew. Obviously, like a Jew type idea or not. You care who. See what I mean? This is how they originally got the stock, you know, they got a stock for experimentation from these type of unfortunates who ended up as orphans. There's the author of the story, like, look at that. Evil as. You see here, the Jewish beak. Jewish nose as a large, massive club-shaped hook nose. So basically, you know what I mean, this type of thing is they were the Beaker-People, right? Complete piss take, you know, that Beaker-People. It's complete shite, you know, it's garbage. You know, I've only recently invented that. Tablet magazine, yeah. because they're basically spelling out, what they're gonna do. Replace 90% of the British population with African transgenders,